Someone asked. Keir Starmer got blasted for cutting winter fuel payments. So when Gordon Brown and Rishi Sunak scrambled to pump money into welfare back in the day, the public must have been deeply grateful, right? The actual result? Both ended up suffering humiliating defeats. There is a dark sense of humor here, and it boils down to three hard truths. Truth one. For Brown, splashing cash everywhere was just a last supper for doomsday. Brown was indeed quite generous when he bumped up winter fuel allowances between 2008 and 2010, but that happened right when the global financial crisis struck. The public's logic was simple. They would say, sure, you gave me an extra £100 a year for heating, but my house has lost its value, my job is gone, supermarket prices are skyrocketing, and even the banks are on the verge of collapsing. It is like your house is on fire, and the butler runs over, hands you a piece of candy, and says, "Don't cry, look how sweet this candy is." In the end, this £100 candy could do nothing to suppress the public's fury over the financial meltdown. People felt that it was the butler who failed to guard the house in the first place, letting the fire rip through. Truth 2. For Sunak, splashing cash everywhere was life-saving relief, not a reward bonus. The massive amount of financial aid Sunak handed out in 2022 and 2023, adding an extra £300, came against the backdrop of the energy crisis triggered by the war in Ukraine. But at that time, energy bills in the UK had more than doubled. The public's logic was simple. Before I got even warm at £300 in my pocket, it was completely snatched away by the energy companies. Even with that £300 subsidy, I still felt a massive drop in my quality of life. In the end, the public felt you giving this money was only to be expected, and they even felt you gave too little. This kind of forced generosity rarely wins back votes. Truth 3. The take it for granted effect in politics. This is the most brutal psychological rule. When you boost welfare, people think it is their birthright. When you cut welfare, people think you are robbing them. Gordon Brown and Rishi Sunak were like that kind-hearted neighbor who gives you an apple every single day for 10 years. Eventually, you just take it for granted. Keir Starmer is the unlucky guy who suddenly stops giving apples in the 11th year and, to make matters worse, demands the apple peels back. From the voters' perspective, although Brown and Sunak bumped up the cash back then, the country as a whole was a total mess due to the economic crash, inflation, and Tory infighting. Voters simply thought, you think you can buy me off with this pocket change? Quit joking. It's time for a change. Therefore, while Brown and Sunak increased the winter fuel payments, Brown lost to the financial storm. Sunak lost to inflation and the general public exhaustion with 14 years of Conservative rule. As for Starmer, he is now in the most awkward position of all. He has neither the good fortune of economic growth that Brown initially enjoyed, nor the moral duty of disaster relief that Sunak had. Starmer has to play the villain who takes the apples back, in an era where everyone is already used to high welfare and holds a highly transactional mindset. In British politics, handing out money only stops people from cursing you temporarily, but if you want to keep your job, you actually have to make their lives better. Both Brown and Sunak thought that tossing an extra couple of £100 at people would save their necks, completely forgetting that what the public actually cares about are their houses and their livelihoods. As for Starmer, he didn't even want to give them that £200, so it's no wonder retired folks absolutely detest him. If Starmer hadn't axed the winter fuel payment in the first place, could he have been seen a good guy? The answer is probably brutal. It would still be very hard for him to become a good guy, but perhaps he could have avoided becoming the public enemy number one he is today. Why is that? We can look at the tragedy of this unlucky Prime Minister's character through three logical points. First of all, even if he hadn't cut the heating allowance, his reputation would still have been stained by the scandal of accepting £100,000 in gifts. The moment his £100,000 worth of suits, glasses, football tickets, and concert tickets came to light, the public, especially the pensioners who lost their heating money, would still have viewed him as a hypocrite. Secondly, he is playing a game with no winners. Starmer inherited a hypersensitive, bean-counting society. In this kind of society, if you want to be the good guy, you either need money or charisma. He has neither. He has no money to play Santa Claus. Unlike Brown back in the day, he doesn't have economic growth, so he can't just paper over the cracks by handing out cash to everyone. He has no charisma to be an inspirational leader. He isn't the type of person who can deliver a fiery speech that gets your blood pumping and makes you willing to suffer alongside him. He is more like a liquidation lawyer who coldly tells you, according to the statutes, you must now go bankrupt. If he hadn't cancelled the winter fuel payment, he certainly would have secured the pensioners' votes. But then he might have had to raise taxes further, or cut public services even more, thereby alienating more of his voter base. If neither approach worked, his only option would have been to borrow more money to bolster his image while in office, but he had no intention of doing that. Thirdly, his greatest tragedy is attempting to do logic to fight emotion. In his current predicament, Starmer's biggest mistake is believing that being factually correct makes you a good guy. His self-defense is, sure, I cut the pensioners' heating allowance, but I increased their state pension, so on balance they are still better off. The pensioners' response is, you took a banknote out of my wallet right now, and then told her I get a pay rise next year. I don't care how much it goes up next year, you are stealing my money right now, which makes you the bad guy. Starmer lacks that politician empathy. A truly great politician, even when they have to cut your benefits, will hold your hand with tears in their eyes and tell you how much their heart breaks for you. Starmer, on the other hand, coldly reads out the verdict that he is in a courtroom. If he hadn't cancelled the winter fuel payment, he might have been judged as mediocre but steady. He wouldn't have suffered such a brutal defeat in the May 2026 local elections. He wouldn't have been branded with the extreme label of freezing pensioners to death. Therefore, he didn't turn bad because he cancelled the winter fuel payment. Rather, cancelling the payment acted like a magnifying glass, exposing all the flaws and double standards of his character under the bright glare of the sun. Do you think that for someone like Starmer, who isn't a career politician, if he could do it over again, he would do what it takes to stay popular, starting by learning how to pander to the UK's biggest voting bloc, the pensioners?